So we have a new lawsuit that went out in Alberta, and we'll just pull up we have a written piece, but I've reached out to the lawyer Eva Chipiek to do a video interview about this because I have some additional questions. But the basics are that an Alberta woman files a $10.5 million lawsuit against the government, the CBC, over her vaccine injury and the vaccine misinformation spread by those entities. So it reads here, following a thorough medical evaluation, Miss Sakamoto was diagnosed with severe and permanent Bell's palsy attributed to the Pfizer vaccine. As a result, she has endured facial paralysis, hearing loss, vision impairment, dizziness, anxiety, depression, memory loss, cognitive impairment, psychonesis, which is essentially like twitches or like body jerks, sleep disruption, speech impairment, tinnitus, and vertigo.
So in other words, her life has been ruined. Seriously?
Her life has been ruined. She's a Lethbridge mother of 3. Now, sometimes I barely function as a mother, and I am a healthy, robust individual. I don't know how you could even tend to your mothering duties, let alone work outside the home or do whatever you do to make an income with these kinds of debilitating afflictions. So she's suffering from permanent Bell's palsy, after, of course, she was told through government and state broadcast messaging that she had to do her part and was doing the right thing by following the incessant recommendations of the COVID regime to receive a novel COVID-19 injection. And as a result, she's suffering these debilitating afflictions. But just, I think a few days ago, I don't know the exact date, I can follow up, this lawsuit was filed on behalf of Miss Carrie Sakamoto by lawyers Eva Chipiek, who some of you may recall is one of the Freedom Convoy lawyers, and James Kitchen, who we feature often through the Liberty Coalition Canada organization. And so both of them have joined forces. They're working with the Institute for Justice and Freedom for Empowered Canadians. And they have named directly the Federal Minister of Health, so that's Yves Duclos, the Chief Public Health Officer of Canada, Theresa Tam, Health Canada, the Public Health Agency of Canada, Dr. Celia Lorenko, Alberta Health Services, and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. They say that they were negligent, provided information they knew to be false and or incomplete, and that they censored and suppressed truthful and reliable information about vaccine injuries, which caused harm, permanent damage, to Miss Sakamoto. And we know this through the Privy Council office. They put out a memo on winning vaccine messaging that essentially sought to cover up vaccine injuries, downplay the risk to ensure that nothing compromised that safe and effective pharma marketing scheme. And I have a previous report on that. I'm actually going to do a follow-up because I have since been able to obtain the entire Privy Council office memo done in collaboration with Impact Canada. It is concerning the lengths and the behavioral science used to manipulate Canadians to comply with the vaccine rollout. And this poor woman was subject to that, a victim of it, and now she will suffer the rest of her life. Now, she has a documented vaccine injury. She was compensated barely by the VISP program, the Vaccine Injury Support Program, that newly instituted vaccine injury support rolled out by the federal government shortly after they saw the influx of COVID vaccine injuries. But it's not enough to cover the costs. She's had to move. The whole story is just absolutely insane. Yeah. The injustice faced by this individual thinking she was doing her part and the right thing, and now is suffering as a result.
And Tamara Ugolini, I can't help but notice the coincidence in terms of the figure that she's suing for against the government, $10.5 million. So imagine that, folks. We talked about that very briefly earlier in the show. Omar Khadr, terrorist, murderer, self-confessed, by the way, so there's no wiggle room here, voluntarily the federal government gives him $10.5 million for hurt feelings. And here's a woman, as Tamara has said, her life is ruined because of this misinformation and this experimental vaccine. And she's got to go on the offensive and try to make the government do the right thing as a citizen, a law-abiding citizen of this nation, to get her $10.5 million. And I think that's on the low side. I think if this was being tried in a U.S. court, Tamara, the figure, I mean, for goodness gracious, you see hundreds of millions of dollars being given out to people who are driving with a hot cup of McDonald's coffee, scalding their thighs. It's, it's a self-induced injury, if you will. So the fact that it's 10.5 million, I know that sounds like a Lotto Max jackpot to a lot of us, but really, in terms of what she's gone through, I don't think it's that big. And yet she's going to be fighting. She's going to be in court for years.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a disgrace.
The real injustice here is the fact that this is all taxpayer funded. That lawsuit, any form of payout, is going to come from the taxpayer's pocket. Right? It's not going to come from Theresa Tam's personal bank account. It's not going to come from the CEO of the CBC's personal bank account. This is going to come from the honey pot, the piggy bank of the taxpayer. And it's Big Pharma who has made trillions on pharmaceutical products and arguably billions on this particular vaccine. It's not Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, who's going to pay out this victim. It's the taxpayer's pocket. And that's the real injustice here, is that the people who are actually responsible, that would be Pfizer, just get away scot-free. They've made their millions, their billions, their trillions, and they aren't being named in a lawsuit. And that is arguably because liability was waived when those secret government contracts were signed in the fall of 2020 to bring this experimental product to the market and roll it out on a massive scale. And we can't see those contracts. That's secret. That's hidden.
Isn't that amazing?
All of it is amazing, and we've covered it all. And if you're not following, I would urge you to visit rebelinvestigates.com. That's where we house all of our exclusive reports, access to information requests, and a lot of this information has come by way of those requests. So you might have to dig back in the archives or reach out to me directly. I apologize, though, my emails are a bit of a mess. And I'll try to get you some of those reports. But we've covered all of this, the injustice faced by people who are suffering vaccine injury because they were quite literally manipulated to do so through behavior modification and industrial strength mind control techniques, are now suffering at the hands of this COVID regime. And they quite literally called themselves, in these Privy Council Office memo documents, they call themselves a regime.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.